you have the right to speak freely so that the truth can be investigated. And the truth needs to be investigated because the truth is very complicated. And it's dynamic in some sense because the future is different from the past. And so there's a cutting edge we have to stay on to stay adapted because the future is literally not predictable from the past. The truth isn't a set of facts. The truth is an approach to discussion. That's what Joe Rogan's so good at. That's why he's so popular. It's not because Joe knows the truth. It's because he acts out the truth in his speech and his actions. So the CNN people came after Joe Rogan, and
yes, did they? I didn't hear.
Yeah, and one of them said, essentially, man, what's going on here? We've got this whole bureaus devoted to fact checking and the truth, and all these experts hired, and why the hell aren't people listening to us when they listen to Joe Rogan and he's just winging it? And I thought, just winging it, eh? You try just winging it in front of 11 million people for 5 years and see if you're still standing, buddy. You think just winging it is so easy. Well, first of all, why aren't you doing it if it's so damn easy? And second, isn't it something that with all your resources, you can only garner like 1/10 of the audience of one man who has like zero production expertise in his studio. He just puts it all out online, and all he does is to have honest conversations. I mean, insofar as he's capable of that. You know, Joe stumbles, and he knows that and admits it. And sometimes he gets too, buttoned down on a given point. But fundamentally, he's just trying to do what we're doing here. Keep at it, guys. Every time you attack him, 1 million more subscribers for Joe. They kick him off Spotify. He would have a new platform like in 2 days with twice as many listeners. And so Joe's got to the point where as long as he continues to be careful, and he is being, I don't think he can be canceled. In fact, I think all the attempts to cancel him only redound to his credit and increase the rapidity with which he's destroying the entire legacy media. The only real rationale for opposing free speech, apart from ignorance, which is that you don't know that free speech is just another right and you don't know it's indistinguishable from thought, is the conclusion that you've already figured it all out. So you don't have to think.
Or you're trying to hide something.
Well, that's the other possibility. But those two things go hand in hand very frequently, is that it's very often that people who are trying to hide something justify that to themselves with a kind of totalitarian certainty about their beliefs. They double down on them to hide their own moral iniquities. And so you have to believe that people like Rogan shouldn't be allowed to just have a discussion with whoever they want and wing it. And do you think that because you think you already know? And, if your life is perfect and you're already living in the kingdom of God, and then more power to you, maybe you're right and you can shut down free discourse because the heavenly heights have already been scaled. But I haven't met anyone like that yet. Most people I know think with not too much thought that there's some things they still have to learn and some ways their lives could be improved. And how are we going to approach that? Especially, you want to find out how you're wrong. You should talk to people who don't agree with you. Now, maybe 90% of what they say is not worth attending to. Could easily be. Probably the same goes for you. But 10% might be just what saves you in the next crisis. This is one of the things I loved about being a clinician, is that I talked to lots of people who were really different than me, like seriously different from me. And if I wasn't learning something from them when I was in discourse with them, it was because I wasn't conducting the discourse properly. And it's one thing I really like about being trained as a behavioral psychologist. I'm very interested in psychoanalytic theory, but it's very abstract. Existential psychology is very abstract, meaning of life stuff. It's like, yeah, but where does the rubber hit the road? Well, the truckers know that, right? They really know that because they're down there moving goods to people. They're doing the actual work in the most fine-grained manner. Now, they might have a problem with high-order articulation. They don't have trouble with enunciating blunt truths. But, you were pointing to problems among the intellectuals. while the intellectual chattering class is criticizing the truckers, there's a divorce between the intellectualized framework, ethical framework, and that practical reality that the working class people represent. And I mean, your observation that the truckers and the Joe Rogans are serving as redemptive agents is a reflection of the idea of the brilliance of individual sovereignty, the notion of individual sovereignty as the basis for political stability. It's like, well, who should you consult? Well, not just the people with the ideas, the people who drive the trucks. Well, why? Because they're navigating the roads, they're delivering the goods in the real sense. And so they know things. Yeah, you bet. Well, and they are the people. They have their families. Their life is real. It's not abstracted to the point where the abstractions themselves become a problem. To the truckers, keep your heads, gents. Don't take the bait. You know what you're doing, producing a community there, cleaning up the streets, trying to care for the homeless, keeping a playful spirit about this, that's crucial. No, to do it with a sense of play, that's a sign of mastery. It's a very difficult thing to attain. And don't let your frustration translate itself into violence. Be careful, be careful, be careful. There's a lot resting on what you do, right. Every single one of you. Yeah. So eyes open, like ethical stance forward, caution, bravery, truth, care. So far, the truckers have exemplified the fundamental Canadian, what would you call it, ethic of decency. And that's not nothing. Yeah, there's an ethos, the ethos of decency. And we're in times where sudden events can produce catastrophic consequences. And so keep your heads. If you're on the side of the right and the good and the true, it will prevail if you could tolerate the intermediary heat. So don't explode prematurely and keep aiming up, man. More power to you.